Today I want to take a look at a very simple but very entertaining shooter for the Amiga, Dogs of War. There was always one game that my brother and I played over and over again back in the day. A top-down shooter named Timbo F5. Well, at least that's what was written on the backup disc we had. In truth, it was, of course, the cheat code for a game Elite released in 1989 named Dogs of War. The game has nothing to do with the novel or the Christopher Walken movie titled The Dogs of War. And even though the character of Player 1 looks remarkably like John Rambo, the game has also nothing to do with the Rambo movies. I don't know if your characters are supposed to have a name, as the copy I bought from eBay didn't include a manual. The previous owner assured me, however, that there was no manual, just a sheet of quick start instructions. The game begins with a map of the world, where numerous flashing locations designate different missions. Using the joystick to point at one of these markers gives you the mission description. Missions are either fetch an item or rescue a person. Interestingly, they are never destroy something or kill someone. Each mission has a different contact person and has a little story snippet to make each one unique, even though gameplay stays exactly the same. While you might think that adding missions like these to a game like Dogs of War might be rather pointless, I think it's actually quite ingenious for two reasons. One, it makes you feel like you are in control of what you're doing, like a real mercenary. And even though you have to finish all missions to complete the game, you can do them in any order. I personally suggest beginners to start with the one that gives the least amount of money, as the more money you get, the harder the level is. And two, it actually gives the level a purpose and makes you the good guy in this conflict, like in testosterone-laden 80s action movies. Once you have decided which mission you want to complete, the game presents one of the coolest features, the weapon shop. Here you can buy your weapons from a very impressive arsenal. What's even more impressive is the slight differences between firing rate, distance and speed of your shots each weapon has. It's actually quite a lot of fun to try different guns, though you usually stick to the same gun in the end. Once you've decided what weapons to bring to your mission, the level starts, accompanied by the game's rather awesome main theme, which loops in the background during gameplay. And thanks to some clever programming, you get both music and sound effects simultaneously, even though the effects kind of interrupt the music, but it's hardly noticeable. The gameplay itself is rather simple. You control your character with the joystick, which allows you to run and gun in 8 directions. A neat little feature is that if you press and hold the fire button while standing still, you can use the joystick to choose the direction which you fire your weapon without moving. This allows you to spread your shots into 16 directions if you have a gun with a sufficient high firing rate, gaining another advantage over your enemies, which otherwise have the same limitations as you do. A major part of the game is finding cover and shoot from there. It's not necessary to kill every enemy, and in fact, it sometimes is the better tactic to wait behind cover until all enemies have left the screen. However, killing an enemy soldier not only rewards with points, but with a monetary bonus as well. The mission reward alone won't give you enough money to buy ammunition in a sufficient quantity, not to mention better weapons. On first glance, the game seems to be incredibly hard. Countless enemies spread their shots all over the screen and every touch means instant death. but the game is actually pretty fair, with predefined enemy formations that always leave you a chance. I've seen people breeze through the game without losing a single life. Playing in two-player mode makes the game a lot easier. Not only are the odds a little more in your favor, but certain tactics like going in from two sides or sending one player ahead so that the screen scrolls a little and enemies start to rush him, while the other stays in cover and picks him off, work quite well. Graphically, the game may not be something to write home about, but it looks decent. The style manages to be colorful and somewhat realistic at the same time, and death animations are comically over the top. Interestingly, the game was banned in Germany for its violence. It shows how far we have come in our depiction of violence in computer and video games in the last 20 years. But back to the graphics. Each level looks different, with different buildings, which admittedly look a bit flat, and sadly you cannot enter. And sometimes it's rather difficult to see whether an object is tall enough so it actually will provide cover. Depending on the color of the ground, the game renders white or black shots, so they are almost always clearly visible, without being flashing bubbles like in other games. At this point you might wonder if the game has any downsides. And yes, it does. As much as I like its simplicity, there is nothing to spice up its formula. Though there are vehicles in the game, you cannot use them, which is really a shame. There are also no boss battles or other situations within a level that would require you to change your tactics. But other than that, the game is still a blast, especially if you have a friend or sibling to play with. I highly recommend Dogs of War. And how else could I finish this review than with the famous quote from Shakespeare? Cry havoc, and let slip the dogs of war.